I'm ready to actually do the watercolor step, I am going to be using my watercolor pencils that we practice techniques with on that other worksheet. So I kind of have the feeling for how they work. A couple of things that I want to mention as I get started. What you can see is that I've drawn mine again on a second piece of paper, as we've talked about before. This is my thick watercolor paper as opposed to my drawing paper. The other thing I want to mention is that I might have put in a few less details. For example, I didn't do the writing on the pen here that says things like established in 1968 like I did in this example. I also drew significantly lighter. The goal is that you do not want any of the pencil marks showing through when you're done. You do not need a pencil outline. It's going to hurt your craftsmanship. You don't want to have that pencil showing. It's going to look like you just didn't take enough care in the final steps of your project. We also don't need outlines to tell us where an object starts or stops. The contrasting color, value, or texture are what's going to tell your audience that that object starts versus it's the background. So you don't need an outline, despite the fact that it feels like you do a lot of times. So we're trying to break that habit. A couple things that I want to mention. As I go to get started, if I pick an object that I'm going to start with, I'm going to try and erase a bunch of the lines. Some of the lines are going to be way too dark, so this will help me. If I just lighten it up right before I color it, I won't forget where they are, and it'll help me know whatever it is that the shape is, but it won't show up in the final drawing, for example. Another thing that is extremely helpful is to keep a scrap of paper nearby. If you keep a scrap of paper nearby, you can test out your colors. So on this, I played around with different yellows for the Pikachu. For example, this is the lemon colored pencil, and I just used whatever name was on my watercolor pencils. This is lemon by itself. This is cadmium by itself. This is when lemon and cadmium are mixed together. And then if I want to really know what the colors look like, I could go ahead, add my water to them, clean off my brush, try all my different color combinations so that I know what's the best color for me to use for this Pikachu. And the chances are I'm going to use a few of these combinations in multiple places. Each time I did one of these color combinations, I immediately wrote down what the colors were before I forgot. I just keep this as a little log for myself so that I know what I'm doing. Notice I did forget one. Lemon with purple. Now, remember, if we mix a color with its complement, it'll dull it down and make it not quite as bright. And I think maybe one of these three would be really good for the side of the Pikachu has. So I'm going to keep this close by. That way I know what colors I like, see how they look, test them out, go from there. So I'm going to come on over to my Pez and I am going to start coloring him in. I'm not just going to color him yellow and be like, done. No, that's not how this works. You have to blend and mix colors. That's why we study color theory. So if I'm looking at my Pikachu, I'm going to start comparing his colors. Now remember, because I'm in a sitting position and your camera is top down, my angles and colors might be slightly different than yours, but you're going to get kind of the idea. So I think that a lot of him is pretty close to that mix of lemon and cadmium. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start putting in my base colors. And I'm just going to go ahead and color this guy in. I'm going to get nice clean edges. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make it look nice and neat. And then I'm going to start overlapping and mixing my colors. If I was doing a colored pencil drawing, I'd be doing the exact same things except without the water step. Notice how it's a little too bright. I need to dull it down. From my testing, I know that I really like it with this cadmium yellow, but I also think a little bit of this olive green worked really well. And I'm going to put it right on here where there's just this tiniest little shadow right here. And I'm going to mark that guy in because I'm kind of afraid if I color too much, I'm not going to be able to see where that line was. So there's just this little line there. And I'm going to leave that. There's also just a little bit of a highlight on this side of the ridge. And I'm going to come in with my cadmium Now I'm going to maybe darken up to the left of the highlight. Go a little bit darker there with the other yellow, just to give the illusion that that spot rises up. If you're doing this right, there's going to be a lot of coloring over coloring, because what's happening is that you're noticing the color in the box of colored pencils. It's not the color that you have on there. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this. I'm going to time lapse my video so you can see what it looks like when I work a little bit quickly. I want you to notice I'm going to go back. I'm going to test more colors. I'm going to be trying different ones out of my toolbox. I'm just going to keep going until I find the colors that I like the best, because we know that I can't erase colored pencil. Also, remember to pay attention to the fact that I'm going to be lightening up my pencil marks right before I color something in. If you find that your hand is getting on top of things and messing them up or dragging colors, try putting a paper towel between your hand and the paper so that you aren't smudging things.